The sight of a child clicking their pen or bouncing their leg is a pretty familiar one across classrooms all over the world. These seemingly distracting behaviours, often categorised as fidgeting, are very common for students with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD. But what if these movements, instead of hindering learning, could actually be helping? In recent years, the use of fidget toys has gained traction in classrooms, with proponents saying that it can increase focus, reduce anxiety, and actually enhance academic performance of students with ADHD. However, the research on this topic is still evolving, and there is plenty of debate around the effectiveness of fidget toys in classrooms. And today I'm going to be talking about a couple of tests I did in my role this year of testing out different fidget toys in the classroom with different students. We'll have a look at which ones worked, which ones didn't, and the general answer to this question of whether fidget toys work for students in the classroom. Fidgeting, known as tactile kinesthetic stimulation, is a natural human function that involves the repetitive movements of hands, feet, and the body. And while it may appear disruptive, research suggests that it actually may be beneficial for cognitive function. Studies have shown that fidgeting can open up brain regions to do with attention and memory, which can help with focus and task performance. This is particularly relevant for students with ADHD who often struggle with attention regulation and executive functioning. Fidget toys, designed as a safe and controlled outlet for fidgeting, have become increasingly popular in classrooms around the world. These toys come in a variety of forms, from squishy balls to little ropes with marbles in them, to more complex fidget toys and spinners. They come in jewelry, rings that spin, classic slinkies, sensory and pop toys, very simple, squishy, bendy, stretchy things, little pop versions, just then basically down to toys in different varieties. The idea is that by engaging the senses of touch and sometimes sound, a student with ADHD can help to self-regulate their extra energy and dispel some of it in a non-distracting, semi-constructive way that can actually then let them focus on the task at hand. Research on the effectiveness of fidget toys in classrooms is mixed. Some studies have shown positive results, leading to decreased anxiety, improved focus, and better outcomes for academic performance for students with ADHD. For example, a 2018 study in the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry found that those who used fidget toys during a reading and comprehension task showed better attentiveness, comprehension, and overall understanding of the text as compared to those who did not. However, other studies have found little to no difference in students with ADHD utilising fidget toys or not to improve academic performance. A 2017 review of the literature in attention disorders showed that there was little correlation between fidget toys and attention or academic performance, and that there was more research needed. So as learning support coordinator this year at my school, I was working with a lot of the kids who have ADHD or autism, and I wanted to bring in some fidget toys as a way to test and trial, as a tool in a little toolkit to help the kids be able to regulate, stay calm, and focus better in class. I bought a 70 pack from Amazon, and the pack came with lots of different types of toys, fidget toys, sensory things. I created a little register so students who were who I was working with could come and they could sign off a little toy, and they could utilize that for a lesson or for a day and then return it. Throughout the process, the students would gravitate to certain toys. At the start, we kind of got rid of any toys that were really loud and we thought that would be distracting to others. So we limited which type of fidget toys they could take, but even with that, we found different students would utilize toys in different ways and end up distracting other students. There was mixed feedback from teachers who would have to still utilize behavioral and discipline techniques to manage those students in the classroom if the fidget toys became too distracting or ended up working against or not helping the situation. What we ended up finding was that there was a few types of toys that were consistently going out with the kids and then coming back with no bad feedback from teachers, and the students seemed to, once they sort of started finding their toy that worked for them, then they would come back for them in times of stress. So for example, before a test or before a particularly challenging lesson, they might come and see me and be like, "Hey sir, can I please borrow a fidget toy?" And by that stage, after the trial period of trying a lot of different fidget toys, we ended up just on a few that I would hand out pretty regularly, and the students were happy with them, the teachers were happy with them, and they seemed to do their job. Basically, some of the better ones, and it depended on the student, but these little ropey, marble-y things ended up being quite a good one because they're pretty indestructible. They are very sensory, and you can use one hand, you can use two hands, but they're not very fun to play with somebody else with. And if somebody sees it, they might have a go at it, but you can't make much noise from it. It's okay, it's cool to look at, it's interesting, but it's not the most interesting thing in the world. It's not shiny, it doesn't make cool noise. You can't really be creative with it in making something, so it doesn't attract too much of your focus. It actually just does the job of taking that extra energy that's in your hands, and you can feel it, and you can hold it tightly or softly. It just seemed to come back again and again with no bad feedback from teachers. Students seemed to enjoy it as for what it needed to be doing. Other things that were pretty good, especially for students with autism, were these kind of little poppy ones. Generally, the students with autism utilize the fidget toys really well, as opposed to the students with ADHD, who would often use it as a fun thing, and it would end up distracting others within the classroom, so sort of defeating the purpose. But these ones for kids with autism seemed to be a good comforting one. Nice and easy to play with, very simple, makes a tiny little noise, but it's very mellow, feels good in the hand. There's a couple students in our school that use rings, like spinner rings, and that's a pretty good little inconspicuous one that it's just personal for them. They're not going to be distracted by it, it's just going to be there, they're just going to be able to play with it pretty easily. Sometimes they might make a little noise, which can be distracting, but no worse than a pen or anything like that. Also, they look kind of cool. I think some kids would like that. Sometimes a nice stone, like a polished stone or a gem or a crystal or something like that, can be a good one just to have in the pocket. It's one we didn't get to trial, but I have a good feeling about that one for a certain type of kid. These stretchy bands were pretty good, but they depends on the kid. If you give it to a kid who's pretty social and likes to play with other kids, then this will end up being distracting. But if you give it to a kid who's pretty quiet and mellow, then they can enjoy it. These ones, too loud. Anything that's too loud, not great for the classroom. Anything that can be broken easily, or even not easily. Anything that could just be broken or pulled apart, probably not a good one. Those hands will just work through anything and just pull it to pieces. Slinkies, not so good, a bit too much of a toy. Yeah, and it just invites others to play with it, they want to have a go with it, that kind of thing. Toy cars, same, too much fun. Little bits of metal, maybe just a bit, probably just a bit too loud. So yeah, that was one of the greater challenges of evaluating the toys, is that individual preferences and needs play a big part in what's going to be effective and what's not going to be effective. What works for one student may not work for another, and what works for a student at a time may not work for them later. So it's important to remember that fidget tools are just one tool in a comprehensive approach to supporting students with ADHD. Some other effective practices and strategies are structured and predictable learning environments, clear expectations and routines, positive reinforcement and behaviour management techniques, and collaborations with parents and healthcare providers. While the research on fidget toys is inconclusive, there is some evidence to say that it may work for some students better than others. It's crucial to approach their use with caution and pay attention to individualized attention. More research is needed to determine the effectiveness of fidget toys in the classroom, and ultimately the decision of whether or not to use fidget toys in the classroom should be made in collaboration with the student, the teacher, and the parents, taking into consideration the child's learning styles and needs, maybe integrating a trial period so the student can learn how to use them effectively and potentially can trial a few different toys to see what works. With that approach, it gives everyone in the situation a chance to figure out what's working best for the student. Thanks.